Hey, what's up, guys? English Dave here for another Nerdy Bunch spoiler free review. Today, we're here to talk about Netflix movie The Old Guard. This is based on a graphic novel by Greg Rucka and Leandro Fernandez, and written by Greg Rucka, and directed by Gina Prince-Bythewood, who famously did Love and Basketball. This is very different.
Which is
genre
so
for her,
crazy. Like,
right?
this is the same woman that made Love and Basketball, which I can't lie was a big film for me. But what a difference! And like action film.
Yes, like Raven said, we are here to talk about The Old Guard. This just came on Netflix. The synopsis is as follows. A group of mercenaries, all centuries-old immortals with the ability to heal themselves, discover someone is into their secret, and they must fight to protect their freedom. This is, like I said, based on a graphic novel. I didn't know much about the graphic novel. I'd heard about it, but I hadn't read it. But I was interested once this came out on Netflix. But I'll start with you, Mike. What were your expectations going in, and how did you find the movie?
Zero expectations. I went in completely blind. I knew the title, I knew it was Charlize Theron, and I knew it was action. So I'm like, okay, this is gonna be solid. It could be solid. It could be fine. No idea. Didn't even know what the old guard was. No idea. Didn't even know they were immortal. I went in thinking that the movie was over in 10 minutes. And I didn't I'm like, where is this gonna go? Is this gonna be like? And I was like very intrigued too, because obviously being so into like Lord of the Rings and Elder Scrolls, and I'm like, I'm seeing everyone carrying these broad swords. I'm like, okay, this is just a new style, just some stealth spec ops here, and I was really into that. And then I'm like, oh, it all added up. I'm like, these guys are really good. They've trained a long time using these specific old weapons. And then I was just like, all right, I'm hooked. Okay, let's see where else this goes.
And like I said, this is a graphic novel I knew of, but I didn't know much about it. But I did know the hook of them being immortals. Raven, you said you knew this was done by Gina Prince-Bythewood, and you loved in Love and Basketball. So what kind of expectations were you going in for this kind of movie, and how did you find the film itself?
Well, no, I actually didn't know going in. I found out after I watched the film who directed it. I actually thought it was Charlize for whatever reason. I knew that it was produced by Charlize Theron, and I'm a huge supporter of Charlize Theron. I'm like in love with that woman. So pretty much anything she does, I'm gonna see. So I didn't really care. I feel like I watched the trailer a long time ago, and then I forgot all about the movie, and then kind of read the synopsis and was like, whatever, let's go. And this was not what I expected, but I will say in a good way. It was unexpected in a good way.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think I it's no secret how I feel about a lot of Netflix movies that aren't trying to go for awards recognition. And so I went in with this was like another typical Netflix movie. It's not going to be that great. It'll be fine at most. And I was pleasantly surprised. I actually was pleasantly surprised with this film. I thought it was lots of fun. I think Gina Prince-Bythewood, I don't know how long she's been trying to prove herself. I think this is a movie that proves that she can take on the genre. She can do the action, and I think this is also an opening for a lot of female directors or female directors of color who don't get opportunities because a lot of people think, oh, you're a woman, you can't do an action film. It's like, well, yes, that doesn't matter. It's been proven many times, and this is just another one to add to that list. I love Charlize as well. I think she's a great actress. I love her, and I think she could do the action roles. Fun fact, her and Kiki Lane, who plays Nile, they do 90% of their action stunt scenes, and they learned. Yeah, you can definitely tell from the directing.
You can tell. I was watching it, waiting,
to see the cut.
Yeah, for all of you guys at home that don't know what to look for, if you're ever watching an action film, focus on where the camera is pointed to during the action scenes. If you see a lot of scenes where the camera's focused on the actual actor themselves, 9 times out of 10, that's the actual actor doing their own stunts. Usually if the camera cuts away, if you're seeing a lot of behind the head shots or a lot of wide shots of the body and just the stunts, that's usually
super close-ups.
Yeah, exactly. But in this film, there's super close-ups. There's no way it wasn't Charlize or Kiki. That's her name.
And another touch they add to it is, it's Kiki Lane. Another touch they add is they made sure the actors learned a whole variety of martial arts. I think it was like 10 or 15 types because they're immortal. They would have learned multiple fighting styles over the centuries.
Of course.
So like they fight in that style, and I love that. I thought that was really well done. It was very evident, right, the way they switch up their fighting styles. And I think one of the best things for me was, a lot of movies that are about a team, a group, only do so in the concept, right? This did a very good job in execution because the way they fought, they were a perfect unit. Like some of my best moments are just their fighting styles working together, doing some cool stuff. Like one person throws the gun to the other person to reload, and just like working off of each other. You're like, yep, they've been fighting together for hundreds of years.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. You know, I thought they did a great job with it. I think that's a credit to Gina Prince and her stunt coordinators. I think that was absolutely well done.
Yeah.
Raven, I'm going to talk to you about the plot itself. I went into this. One of my things I went into this was I usually don't like movies like this where someone's hundreds of years old, but then all the stories about what's happening now. Like the interesting part's usually the history. I personally think this did a good job of kind of balancing both. We got bits of their history, not too much, but just enough that it informed us now. What did you think of the plot itself?
Yeah, so I felt like the plot was just really refreshing overall, because I felt like there were a couple of moments that could have easily been cliche, or in any other film would have come across as cliche, but there was a way that the film had its own unique twist, I think, to a lot of tropes that we normally would have seen. Even just like you were saying, the team aspect of the film, I felt like this group was a believable team. I felt like you believed that they've been together for centuries, or that they were hundreds of years old. There's a lot of times that we all watch films where we're constantly being told, when I was young, or there's like a corny accent or whatever that signifies that they're from an old time, but you don't really feel it, and I felt like this film did a good job of showing how wise they were. Just where the film ended up, without giving any spoilers, I think is it's weird, it's typical, but I like the way that we got there, if that makes sense. I think that the story that was told to get to the same point of any team story was unique.
Well, I think, without spoiling, I think their narrative is one of, they're called the old guard, right? What I do like is that they're not constantly reminding you that they were the protectors of the earth. You get that without having been told that. But part of the narrative is them being reminded why they do what they do. It's almost that kind of like a new prologue, right? A new beginning kind of thing.
I mean, there was a line in there that says, like, are you guys the good guys or bad guys? And it says, depends on what century.
Love that line. Love that line. Absolutely love that line. And it's also one of those movies where it's not as interested in the hows and the whys, just the is, right?
No.
It's like it doesn't
because
care
I feel
about
like the music too, but the film itself does a good job of giving you just enough so that your mind fills in the blanks. I feel like it's almost the same as a book. You describe just enough and your brain kind of paints the rest of the picture. And I feel like this film kind of sprinkles enough of their history or enough of a scene so we're like, okay, this is what they were like in this century. This is what this character was like, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. So I did like that aspect of the film a lot.
Mike, you touched on it a bit, and that's why I'm wearing this hat. Excommunicado. I did get a John Wick vibe from this movie in terms of
it was
just like I feel like John Wick, it teases you just enough, like you said, Raven, that you fill out the rest, or like you're just curious about the rest of it. Like you get just enough of each character, just enough about the larger world at stake, right? That is like, oh, I want more after this story or more before this story. It doesn't matter what direction you go. I just want to know more, because I think, Mike, I want to go to you. I really like the main characters. I think, at least on the good side, a lot of the characters were great. Yes, you have Charlize and Kiki, but I think any other characters that stood out to you?
I mean, it's hard to not give anything away, but in that case, since there are only the 4 of them originally, every one of them was so intriguing, especially, let's just say, the 2, that's all I'll say about that. How their relationship ended up kind of forming or unraveling to us, and the reason why they were so close, and the history of them, and that like they used to be enemies, and it's like, oh yeah, we've actually killed each other several times because we were actually taught to hate each other. And I thought that was actually a really
there's a lot of depth there.
Oh my god. And like you speak on John Wick. When I was watching it, I was telling you guys, I thought this was like a video game. It definitely had, a very like Assassin's Creed almost Uncharted kind of vibe, where it was like very adventurous, but it also had a lot of history. And I ended up kind of just daydreaming about all the expeditions that they have gone on and all the adventures they've gone on over the centuries and all the wars they've been in and been involved in, how they could have turned the tide on all this. So it's really hard to pinpoint one character that I found. I thought they were actually a great ensemble of adventure seekers and those that are just trying to change the shape of the world. And I wanted more stories of that. I didn't want just this movie. And, you know, without giving anything away either, it does set up for a sequel. But I'm like, I want prequels. I want a whole fucking book series of this stuff, you know? Give me the times when they was like, oh, the first time that I died, I was fighting with Napoleon. And I'm like, let's see that. Let's see all the first times that they died and they discovered that they were immortal. I would love to see those scenes.
I think that's a great thing, though. I feel like that speaks to the film itself. The fact that we're all like, oh, I want these characters again. You know, and it's not the story. It's like, I feel like a good enough job was done in character development to where we do want to see these specific characters way more. Like, I do love all of them. Like you were saying, Mike, you know, I felt like every actor really did their part. And I was really impressed by Marwan Kenzari. I was just really, really impressed with his acting ability. I had seen him in Aladdin, and I actually really didn't like his portrayal.
Yeah, he was Jafar.
He was Jafar.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
He was Jafar. And I really didn't like him as Jafar at all, but I think now it could have just been that, like, Jafar is is an unlikable character, so could be it. But either way, I think that it was a huge standout performance for me, for him specifically. But with that being said, I don't really feel there was a bad part of the team. I feel like every actor kind of did their part. If anything, my only nitpicks were the villains. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking into that. Yeah. Okay. I called it out when the second I saw him, Harry Melling, and I'm like, that's Dudley Dursley. You know, like that is.
I'm like, come on, Dudley. Instantly, I was like, oh, you fucking douchebag, Dudley.
I'm like, they know how to typecast in this movie.
Like,
I just felt like in every single way, the villain was stereotypical and cliche in every way. Just like from what they did in their day job to their goal to every single. Like,
you got a cliche villain because you stole him from something else.
Right.
You stole the antagonist, and it was like, do that same thing but skinny, and it just isn't. You know, you're not fooling anyone.
Skinny.
And then his plan is kind of like half-assed. He doesn't even know what he's doing. Just kind of figuring shit out.
Like, my thing is, like, I don't know. I would have appreciated it if, whatever. I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say I wish that he would have cared more about his own plot so that I could have.
Exactly. Like, I felt
that
like,
makes sense. I think
my biggest issue is you can tell a lot of time was put into the other characters and just little time into the villain and the villain's plot. You know, it was just like,
yeah.
It
was like, you know? These guys are badass.
Yeah. And I think
still badass.
In a way that it's almost like, and it's you can see it's on purpose. This is all prologue to the next movie, which is the real story, because the real villain is being set up in this film, right? This is just the villain of the movie.
But I will also say that I saw coming too. Those were like the only two predictable things I felt in this film. Was like, I could feel the villain coming from a mile away due to typecasting.
Yep.
And then two, I felt like I knew that there was an origin happening.
Yes.
You know, like it felt obvious to me because I'm looking at the timing of the film knowing there's only a certain amount of time left and you wouldn't have just introduced something to then leave it. So then you're kind of waiting for it, and then in the end it's like, oh yeah, you know, but you kind of see it coming, in my opinion. But
and I think that's the nature.
I liked.
I think that's the nature of it being based on a comic book, right? Where those are comic book stuff, those are comic book tropes. You kind of you can't just end one story. Yeah, you got to set up.
I did see an article though. Apparently, this film was very close to the comics, even down to the shot compositions. People were doing side by sides with some of the comic book panels alongside the stills from the film, and like just a moment where there's a close up shot with Charlize. It's like kind of bleeding into the camera, and it's not a cover, but it's one of the main pages in the comic book. So it's pretty true to the comic. So maybe that is why I haven't read it. So maybe they're like, oh, let's stick to it. But that for me was...
Like I said, according to the writer who wrote both the comic and the script for this movie, the main changes he made was adding more to the other characters, because in his comic he focuses more on Charlize Theron's character, and he gave meat to the other characters. Final thoughts. I enjoyed this movie. I definitely think it should be one that's watched. And again, you know my feelings on Netflix. I will be checking out the comic book, and I look forward to a sequel.
Yeah,
totally.
Just spitfire things that I forgot to mention. The action and fight choreography in this was absolutely amazing. The sound design, like, mind-blowing. I love the fact that, because this is no spoilers, I love the fact that a lot of the film is all about stealth operations. So because of that, most of the gunshots, explosions, stuff like that are silenced. You know, they have silencers and mini explosions. So I feel like because of that, it gives it a very unique feel and sound. Because even during big shootouts, you don't have your, speaker system blaring out. It's just like really intimate, but somehow it makes it more badass and more efficient. So I really love the fight scenes, fight choreography, and I felt like the overall pace of the film was really good. And just real huge shout outs to Gina Prince-Bythewood, because like for a first action film, wow. It's just really mind-boggling for me. And this is like, I think, my favorite Netflix action film so far.
I would agree in terms of Netflix original. I think this and I think Extraction, it comes close to this one, but I think this one is just a bit above Extraction, because Extraction, I don't think the story was as
I watched Extraction directly after, and the story wasn't as good, but the action blew my mind in Extraction. Yeah,
I agreed. On that note, those of you who don't want any spoilers, you can shut off now. Thank you guys for listening, and continue tuning into Nerdy Bunch for more spoiler-free reviews. For those of you who have watched the film or don't care about spoilers, I want to talk a bit of spoilers, because I think this is one of those movies that needs a bit of that conversation. So I'm going to start off, once again, final warning, we're going to spoilers now. I like that the movie does a lot of subversion, because I think you mentioned this off podcast, Mike. I thought Charlize was going to die opening the doorway to Kiki's character to take over. And I kind of like that she doesn't. That's
one of the things I loved, and it was so hard not spoiling that just now. Because that was one of the things that I was talking about with Refreshing. It's like they address the tropes. The tropes are there. They're presented. But it's like, we're going to go this way. We see you. We could. It's easy.
But now it makes... But now it creates a new team dynamic, right? Where you have your most badass person, but she's not immortal, so you got to protect her. Like the scenes where they would jump in front of the gunshots. I was like, oh, yeah, that's dope. Those things, I like
awesome.
that.
Yeah, and I also love that, because Charlize's character, instantly she said, it changes nothing. And I believed it. I was like, it's true. If you've been training for thousands of years, there are people that are just regular black ops, regular mortals.
Yeah, they can die, but they still approach every scenario the same way.
Damn near don't die. They're super stealth. So it's easy to believe that someone that's been studying all martial arts for so long would be untouchable, immortal or not. So I feel like for me, I thought to myself in that moment, watch them kill her though. Now she doesn't have powers, and that's gonna be so corny, because she's still a badass. Yeah. And then she didn't die. And I was like, wow.
Same exact thought I had. I'm like, nothing changes. Everyone feels pain still. So what are you going to do with all that training? You're like, I don't even want to feel a scratch if I have this much training. So they practice so long to not be able to get hit whatsoever. If you get hit, it's no penalty to them. They're still going to live forever. Or so, we think. And like that same exact scene when she realizes, oh, her powers are gone, I'm like, okay, nothing's going to change. She's still like one of the most deadly people in the entire world in history. And she's going to still treat it the exact same way. But now she knows, so she's just maybe going to be a little bit more tactical, but she can adjust. She's been trained with every kind.
She's forgotten more things than most people have learned.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that line. Oh, I loved it.
I love it. And I loved it also, like you said, we've seen stories like this before where people are immortal. It reminds you of the Highlander series. But what I like about this is the idea that you're immortal, but you don't know when you're gonna die. At some point, you will die. You just don't know when. You know how many deaths you have. So like the next death could be your final one, and I kind of love that aspect because what it did was it added stakes. Right? Usually movies like this, there are no stakes. You're immortal. You can't die. There's no stakes. But the stakes kind of started raising because I thought, you know, the two lovers. I thought one would die. Usually when you have such great lover story, one of them has to die to make it dramatic.
Too. I was like, one of them's gonna die.
But at the same time, I'm like, no, only one can die at a time in this. You know, we've already given hint that like Theron's the oldest one, so naturally she's the one to go. I'm like, nah.
Speaking of oldest, I love the hints of like just how old is Charlize Theron's character. I feel like she was an original cave woman or something like that.
She was at least like 1,500 years old. At least.
I was going back and I'm like, that like the Mongolian Empire or the, you know, the Jin Dynasty. Like, what is?
She was a part of like every major dynasty.
Yeah, but the thing that kind of
I also
threw
love
me,
the ending credits. That was a cool little.
I was gonna say, let's talk about Quinn. Like, whoa! Imagine being immortal, coming to life and dying over and over again for 500 years, drowning, and it's not like
even the thought of it. Like I was like panicking at home. I was like, that is just worse than anything I could ever imagine.
But I knew she was going to get out.
It's beyond going insane.
Yes.
You know?
Oh no, you knew she was going to come back. But damn,
you knew somebody was gonna free her. She was gonna find
a
way, or something was gonna get dropped.
It was just gonna get rusted up, and she just found a way to pine. You know,
yeah. It's like 500 years. That's some time, but deterioration is real.
Which, you know, I liked her narrative at the end credit connecting to Sebastian's story because I kind of, you know, I like Sebastian's story. He was like the Matrix guy, where it's like, okay, I want to live a good life, kind of thing, and he betrays them. But, you know, I like the resolution. It was like 100 years punishment, you on your own. And this idea that, yes, the greatest punishment to someone who's immortal is loneliness, right? The biggest punishment.
It makes sense. I did like that, too. That was different, too, because they very easily could have been like, let's kill him, you know?
Yeah, fuck this guy.
Or just some, like... Which is what I was expecting. I was like, oh, God, they're going to, like, be...
Like, he understood he was bad guy, but not bad guy.
Exactly. He wasn't that bad. Like, I feel like I understood his motivations more than the guy in the Matrix. You know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
actually, no, I fully understood it.
Because he didn't go up and straight.
Morpheus is a dick. That's why.
Because Morpheus' side doesn't make sense. I'm taking the pill. It makes complete sense.
I didn't want to go do this into spoiler free, but I think if, you know, Chiwetel's character is kind of a mixed bag for me because it's setting up as he's the straight up villain, and in that I hated it because it's underused. But then him ending it as, okay, he's going to be one of the crew team members who's the one that opens their eyes to realizing that what they do has bigger ramifications. I like that, but I wish it was set up as him being good to start off with, because that turn and twist.
That's what I was going to say. It almost felt like a reach, or like the journey from point A to point B for me wasn't exactly believable. I felt like there could have been more hints throughout that journey that would have made me feel like, yes, this guy has learned something. Because for me, I feel like doing the types of jobs that you do, I feel like you can't be that naive. It's Dudley. You knew. Like, it's fucking Dudley. Look at him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you knew he was gonna, you know, sell these dudes out. You knew he didn't have bad intentions. You didn't care.
And he works for the CIA.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's not like he was on his own, you know.
But that's what bothered me, is I felt like they played his character like he was all, oh, I didn't know. Like, that's your job. You know. You know.
How long you been doing this, man?
He's fucking Dudley.
Like, when they turned on him, it was so easy for the bad guy, this tech millionaire, to turn on him. You're the fucking CIA. It shouldn't have been that easy to take you out. Or to turn
even
on.
like for me too, I will say with you know, Harry Melling.
Yeah.
I felt like, I don't know, I didn't really like his portrayal of the character. I didn't like his character at all, really, because I felt like just the motivations weren't there. I don't know if he just didn't have enough to do, or I didn't like.
I don't think it's just motivations. I mean, granted, his motivations and his plan was very weak and cliche, but I also think he felt he was in a different movie. You know, like he was acting in an old school comic book movie. He was still in Harry
Potter. He's the same guy.
He felt like a comic book character, while the others didn't, even though it's based on a comic.
Like the typical like anime bad guy.
Yeah, like he was being like really just
fire all around him, you know.
Yeah. For what? It doesn't make any sense.
I was like, and I think the villain. I think the next story, hopefully with Quinn as the villain, I think there'll be more nuance there, and I get Quinn, I get why she'd be mad, but I understand the other side. I understand both sides. You can't be searching for her forever. Like, they tried looking for her, but what else are you gonna do? It's the whole world. Where are you gonna search? For this.
I did have one nitpick, was that when they went back and she talks about the first of the immortals to die, when she discovered that they can die, I guess it was like her original trio. They were all speaking English way back then. Like, you're talking about, like, maybe it was possibly, like, could be BC. It was definitely BC.
Yeah.
Like, there was all three of them were speaking perfect English, and yet she's off speaking Russian today. Like, we know you. Tell me
that was her. That was her memory failing her. She was like, I forget the language, so fuck it. It was English. I remember it. And
yeah, exactly. She was already too old to be bothered.
It's a dead language.
Like, white people existed way back then too. I had no idea. She was the first white woman, I guess. That was it.
True.
She was the first one to record.
Lastly, I like Niall's character. I didn't talk about Niall's character. I like Kiki Lane's portrayal because I thought she was going to be super annoying.
And
I thought she was going to be a super annoying, reluctant hero. And instead they made her believably reluctant. Like, I'd be like, no, too.
I understood.
She's like, no,
why
but
she
my
came
family
back.
loves me. Goodbye.
Not just my family loves me. Like, I have, at the very least, I have like another 20, 30 years with them. I'm going to enjoy that. Fuck you. And
that was her subtle way of saying, black don't crack. So, right. She's like, people will believe that I just...
Sorry, Mike?
I said I wouldn't have left so dramatically like that. I'm like, you're all clearly in the middle of something. She's like, no, I'm just going to go off with my family. I'm like,
I was like, you should have made up your mind before we took this ride.
Yeah, go finish your thing, then go be with your family, or don't come back at all. I don't know. It felt like it was too wish-washy,
I think part of that was trying to show her fear, but then I'm like, but you're in the army. And the army stuff should have made you not so scared. But I liked her.
But I did believe
how
that she was a badass. I liked her action stunts. I did believe
towards the end,
she was military trained and could be a part of this team. Like, I was like, she could fight well enough.
I like when she's trying to run away and Charlize just shoots to the back of the head.
That was amazing. I love that. And they never deal with that with immortals and like healing and stuff. Like, you could just kill each other. I like when she's like, is this even safe? And Charlize goes, does it matter?
Yeah, right.
It's like,
does it?
True.
Like, seriously, like on the plane. Like,
if you can't die, I guess it doesn't matter if the plane goes
like,
down.
she's scared on the plane putting her seatbelt on and Charlize like, whatever.
After you just got your throat cut. Like, who cares now? Yeah, there's a lot of fun things in this film.
Yeah, it was a fun movie. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Rocket Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raven.
Thank you.
My name's English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch spoiler-free review for The Old Guard, which you can catch right now on Netflix. And as always, Raven,
keep it nerdy.
Keep it nerdy, guys. Peace.